Don't we start people and keep whole people? Show you got heart. Now we're playing the game and we're totally scoring. Learning how to make a virtual a business boring. Showing up every morning, ready for the show. I'ma get ready. Gold engaging virtual meetings 2.0.
Well, hey there, this is John Chen. This is the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast, and I am on the road, returning recently from St. Louis, where I was producing and the keynote speaker for the United States Distance Learning Association. Flew to San Francisco, and I'm happy to say that Mr. Blair Lacourte is now happily married, and I was a part of it. I got a chance to be his MC at his garden party. Which I got a lot of great compliments for, as well as musical intros. So if you want to learn how to be engaging at a wedding, hit me up with some messages and give you some tips. And now I'm broadcasting today from Cupertino from my amazing sister's house. All right, well, I'm excited I met this person too through my amazing connections at the National Speakers Association. Yes, I did take presidency last month, so I'm excited about that. And this person, she is also a CSP, a Certified Speaking Professional, an MCT, an MOSE, and a CVP. She's got over 25 years of experience as a productivity speaker and software trainer. She's a software pro, and her informative and engaging styles helps you discover easy ways to be more productive with software. Let's welcome our amazing guest here, Dawn Bjork. Hi, Dawn. Well, look, we finally got our technology to work, right? Like we're
Oh,
actually
we'll
IT.
see. Yay.
Yeah, by the way, if I disappear during this program, right, Dawn's in charge. She's going to be,
Right.
uh,
Right. Yeah, it's her.
it's here somewhere. All right, well, great. Thank you so much, Dawn. Dawn, where are you joining from? Where are you joining us from today?
I'm in the Denver area.
Oh, that's right. And so we're excited because we're going to see you. Influence, National Speakers Association's
Right.
conference Influence is coming to Denver. And Dawn, that means she has to drive and not fly to this amazing conference.
That means I'm bringing too much stuff.
I may need you to bring me some stuff, but
Right,
well,
right. Hey, I'm taking orders. I'm happy to help.
well, speaking of taking orders, this is an easy order for you, Dawn. For my friends who don't know you yet, take a moment and share who you are and what you do.
Thank you, John. I appreciate the invitation. Well, I'm Dawn, and I'm located in the Denver area, but my location doesn't really matter anymore because my clients are worldwide, and I primarily am a virtual trainer and speaker now. So as John mentioned, I've been working for over 25 years as a software trainer and speaker, and primarily my expertise as a Microsoft certified trainer and with the Microsoft 365 and Microsoft Office applications. So my goal with my clients is to really just help them to find ways to do things easier, to be able to be more productive. To often many of them will learn on the job, or maybe haven't had a class for a long time. So what will help them to be able to move forward and do things in a simpler, easier way, or just to make them aware of some of the capabilities of these ever-changing programs, which can be a challenge there. John, as working for Microsoft for over 10 years, you have a little bit of an insight to that as well. So
Well,
I've worked in the virtual space for over 20 years, but until everything shut down, I was only about 10% virtual, and now I'm almost 100%.
oh, well, amazing, Dawn. We've got lots of great things to talk about. I'm a member of the Microsoft Old Timers group, and somebody posted the DOS version of Defragger, right? It used to
I know it.
defragment hard drives. And so Dave Plumer is actually the software engineer who wrote that piece of software. And he said it's more entertaining than watching your clothes being washed. So, do you remember that defragger app?
I do.
Yeah,
And you would just let it sit there, and you like, oh, that's really cool how everything's coming together.
which just
I
show you
know.
how, yeah, how jumbled everything does get on a hard drive, which because you can never really see it, but they finally
Right.
visualized it. Dawn, how did you get into software? What was like the first program that you or a computer that you worked on?
Mine was an old compact luggable. So I
yes.
actually, yeah, I know. I was actually introduced. My father is this analytical engineer, and he built his first computer back in the 70s. And so I actually had some a little bit acquainted to that. And then uh, when I was still working corporate, I had the opportunity to do some side projects. I really didn't understand the world of being an entrepreneur or anything along those lines. And that gave me the opportunity, we'll say, to buy a very, very expensive computer that I could not justify, by the way, my kids. I'm a business, I graduated with a business major, but that was not necessarily part of my 5-year plan. But as things evolved, I found that I had a knack for not only figuring those things out, because back then, in that first maybe 5 years of my career, I had learned 50 different programs, because at that point we had maybe 5 or 6 word processing programs, spreadsheet programs, graphics programs. We didn't have those dominant players that we do now.
Well,
And so
Don, I thought I'd share too, this because, some of our friends may not know what a luggable computer is
I
here.
know
So
you're gonna
look,
bring up a
look at
picture.
this. Does this send you on the Wayback Machine? Look at this thing. Can you kind of walk us through what this thing really is?
Kind of thought that it was more, it was sort of like a sewing machine in terms of how heavy it was and how big it was.
Very nice.
And it had now I upgraded and I got the expensive one with 2 floppy disk drives, which also most people will not know what that is.
Yeah, here on the
And
right-hand side, yes.
yeah, one of them is for the programs and the other is for your data. And so but it also meant that I actually could bring my computer to do some of the temporary work. I worked in law offices, I worked in various situations where, because I could bring a computer, I was able to. I certainly, it was, when I say luggable, it was about 35 pounds, I think. So
You're
not
doing CrossFit, Don. You just bought a compact computer, right?
exactly. I thought it was pretty spiffy.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, the luggable did make well, because computers, you took whole rooms at this point. So the luggable was a unique piece of technology when it came out, and Compaq was one of the first to do so. And so did you just find that well, one of the things I wanted to share too, I was on the NSA program earlier today, and one of the CPAEs, which is known as a Hall of Fame speaker, was talking about sometimes you need to invest forward. You know what I mean? Which is like, buy the computer that's too expensive for you, because
Hmm.
you end up getting knowledge or training or experience
Right.
like long before other people got that. Did you
Hmm.
find that value in that luggable at some point?
Oh, that was really the value. So I have a father who, I, without really realizing it, was very much a mentor. He was the one that said, you can do anything you want to, go to business school, get something that's really valuable to you. And when I, shared, like, because I had done work um, on computers before, but they were much bigger, like the TRS 80 and things like that.
Otherwise known as the trash
The
80 for
trash
some of
80,
my inside.
yes.
That's right. Some of my inside friends. That's
So
right.
so John and I are both aging ourselves, but
Go Radio Shack, and they're going to go back to the same thing. They're going to, what's a Radio Shack?
what's Radio Shack? This is like computer geek trivia time. But with that, when I reached out to him, no, it really was. I didn't realize at the time I was investing in my career, because I shared with someone. I'd started to do some more side jobs. My corporate job was no longer a good fit for me for other reasons. And I shared with someone that I knew, my next door neighbor, and I simply said, I'm really liking this, and I'm really think I have a knack for helping people out. And she said, oh, you know who you should talk to. And she gave me my first lead for software training. And that was when
Mm.
a lot of people didn't even know what PC meant. And so I had a license plate that said PC Pro, and people were asking me all the time, like, what does that mean? So it was something certainly that evolved, but the business grew from referrals. Now, certainly that is a big part of my business, and also because of my online presence. So those two things really have helped my business to continue. But I think it's still that curiosity that I had from the very beginning, the willingness to learn those 50 programs and to continue to, like you said, move forward, invest forward. And here I
Okay.
am.
So when did you start going virtual? So here, I'll share a little bit of mine. Mine was as early as let's see, 1990 or 2000. I had a WebEx account where WebEx was like 128 pixels wide. If you got 6 frames a second, like that was pretty good. You could
Wow.
actually, see somebody do the robot online. And it was kind of an early version of coaching. I actually put together a trip of 23 leaders across the country. And 6 months later, we were all going to summit Mount Rainier. And I was experimenting with WebEx in like leading in sharing training content because people came all across the US and a few internationals. So that was kind of my first foray into virtual. What was yours?
I wish I could say specifically when it was. Probably it wasn't quite that far back, and it would have been in the early 2000s that it was simply several different clients were kind of in the, we'll say, the bleeding edge of working with webinar software, and it was first of all like, what's a webinar? But they had, and so I learned because they brought me in to deliver that. But one of the things that helped me is, even prior to that, I had worked long term with a company where we had created, I probably created over 50 programs that were training programs on these different applications. And they started off with a VHS. So once again, John, we're going to have to put up a picture probably on what that is. They went to DVDs eventually. But that, what happened there is I literally had hundreds and hundreds of hours where I was in a room where it was just a camera, a script, the director, and that's it. So where a lot of people struggled, especially if they were new to virtual a few years ago, I was used to talking to no one on the screen for years.
Oh,
And
it's
it
like then
just,
you're like ready for the pandemic, right? You just didn't know
right,
that,
right.
right?
I fortunately, I didn't know this was coming just like the rest of us, but I actually had some things in place where I was a lot more comfortable with that. I still upgraded my equipment and my lighting and some things where I really wanted to make sure that I went pro with that. And once things settled down a little bit, then um, it ended up actually being a big boost to my business.
Mhm. Here, wait, we want set the Wayback Machine. I just thought I found this. I can't believe somebody wants $16 for an 8-inch IBM floppy disk.
When I moved, I downsized about 90% of my stuff, and there were a lot of those things that went in the trash. So I don't know.
Oh, we should have known at 16 bucks a pop. With 885 shipping, we could have been rich.
That's
Oh my
somebody
God.
else's business model. It didn't seem appeal to me, but I agree.
Too funny. So you really heavily invested in Microsoft. Obviously, I did. I spent, 10 years working there. And when did you decide to kind of hang or chain up with our good friends at Microsoft as one of your partners or basically the platform to learn? It turned out to be a good choice. It's kind of like selecting Zoom in the pandemic. That turned out to be
Right,
a good choice. So
right.
hooking up with Microsoft, when did you really kind of start investing more in your Microsoft relationship?
Well, it started to be really just an evolution where, as the market was changing, now we had fewer players that were predominantly in the business space, because that's where I work. I'm with government corporate associations, and I've always been in the PC world, so I know what a Mac is. I can I can do a few things on it, but it's, when you've got such a market share in that world. So that was always my space with that. And so I straddled into, let's say, for Lotus 123 and Microsoft Multiplan, and then it became Excel. But Microsoft was actually, even though they have a reputation sometimes of being the more conservative, stodgy, they were willing to go forward with having getting into the Windows environment, having the graphical user interface, having something that was really appealing to people.
Yep.
And because they had built out the applications, now we have this suite. And so that was really what grew it. So I just kind of followed where the demand was. And it ended up being a great choice. And over time, then there became more opportunities to receive certification, which helps me in situations where there might be a competition or other people that are being considered for a speaking event or a training program, to be able to have that credibility. But really, I think it has more to do with just my style and the depth of my knowledge.
Yeah, it was a good choice. I'm looking here. Apple in the last quarter of 2023 shipped 16.1% of all the PC units. So I mean, Microsoft still has a big lead in this area. And
Mhm.
even though I have an iPhone and an iPad, I still
I do too.
right? I use all this PC equipment around. And I just shared recently that I produce, this really amazing hybrid. And it's a laptop that when it goes on sale at Best Buy is only $999. And it, contains one of these new AMD chips and an RTX graphics card of 4060, which is like amazing for $1,000. But
Oh
actually, I
yeah.
think I remember my college roommate borrowed $1,200 from me to buy his first 286 computer. Right, and he had to pay me back for that. And I remember that 286 being the fastest thing around at the time.
All you'll ever need.
That's the Bill Gates quote, right? Eight
Yeah,
eight
yeah, that
megabytes.
yeah, that was him.
All right. So then when did what was that transition? What happened to you in the pandemic? And you said now you've been able to move almost all of your business onto virtual. What happened to you in that transition? Is because everyone seemed to handle it a little differently.
Well, after I got past the panic and do I have enough toilet paper and do I have enough money? uh, that I was able to kind of settle down. It also was the, the clients that I had, first of all, a lot of things got canceled because they were in-person events. But then once people got settled down and realized, okay, this is not 2 weeks, it's not even 2 months, then they started regrouping and looking at, we still need to be able to offer even more so. We need to be able to offer some, education, some opportunities to be able to connect people and bring them together. And so it was something that was, fairly organic in that. I have a number of clients that they are either 100% remote or they are hybrid, so that many times their employees are either never back in the office or they're only there part-time. And so it's continued with that. But because I'm just a content geek, I've got created blog posts and videos and so many different things over the years. And fortunately, that helped me for people to find me because I acquired a lot of new clients in over the last 4 years where people are
Hmm.
finding me for virtual programs.
And what's one of your best tips during that time, or what's one of the ways that you found that was the easiest way to help people that contacted you?
Well, the first part of it is, and this is true with any time, if you're an entrepreneur, whatever your expertise is, what are their pain points? What do they want to accomplish?
Mm-hmm.
And so it doesn't matter if it's virtual or in person or some hybrid mix on that. And having them feel comfortable that you are the trusted guide and expert in that process.
Hmm.
And so it's the conversations you have, it's the Zoom meetings that you have, the Teams meetings, the phone calls, the emails, whatever it is, because they've made a decision that I think this is the person that would work for us, but now we need to just have that confirmation.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you so much, Don. So for you then, right, over the last 4 years, I'm sure you developed some preferences What has to happen for you in a virtual meeting for you to be engaged when you're the attendee, well, not when you're presenting, but when you're attending?
I don't know what your experience, John, is, but for mine, and this was true even before we got to virtual, I think that fellow trainers and speakers are probably the worst people to have in your audience because we're evaluating things from such a different perspective. You know, I was part of a conference a few weeks ago, and I'm like, well, that's not how you do it. You know, I wanted to say, or or that's not true, because it was also in kind of my lane of expertise too. But I'll say when I am a participant in a meeting, for me, it's still important. I want you to respect my time. So
Yeah.
start on time, end on time.
Yeah.
And pretty quickly start delivering on your promise, because I've made that commitment to either be in that, whatever that room is. If it's now, it's mostly the virtual room, but even if it's in person, I've made that commitment over a lot of other things I could choose from. So make sure you're delivering that promise, because I've still seen meetings where people are like, well, we'll just give it about 5 or 10 more minutes before before we get started. And I'm like, so you're not respecting the time of first of all, now we might have had an hour, now we only get 50 minutes. And all the people that showed up and were on time, and I understand there could be technical issues, that's different. But those are just pet peeves for me that I run into sometimes.
Yeah. My number
And
one technique for that too is I tell all my presenters, even if they do say it right, I'm like, well, for all you early people, let me give you a lot of bonus value for the other late people are not going to get. And so it just immediately sends a different signal to those people, right? The people are like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I got here
the
early.
respect.
Oh,
Yeah.
super respect. Thank you for that, Don.
And I have a colleague, and she does webinars in a particular industry. And so with this one group she has, it's like every week, and they know her well enough. And so if they come early, she shows up in some costume. So it's like, I want to see what Rebecca's wearing. And it can be anything from Cleopatra to something else. And so it's a great technique that she uses, especially because she has this ongoing, it's a once a week
Yeah.
training class.
Yeah.
And so they have, not only is she such a pro and so engaging, and she's got a great sense of humor, she knows the industry so well, she's got the great breadth of knowledge, but she's making it fun. So if you show up 10 minutes beforehand, you get to see what Rebecca's wearing. But if you come in late, by then she has her camera off and quickly gets out of her costume, and now she's just, nice and pleasant on screen. And so you miss it. And she gets great participation right away by doing that. So that may not be ever a strategy I'll use, but I find it very helpful in that.
Well, I think the key to those types of strategies, Don, is to look for things that you don't really have to train people for. So for instance, one of our recent one is like, we don't have a stage in this place that we're at, but I lay out a carpet, right? One of those beautiful Persian rugs. And I never have to tell the speakers anything, but very few speakers will walk off the rug. Right. And so I'm just like, these are the kind of things that are like that, which is, you don't have to train anybody for them, but as soon as they realize what it is, it will have the effect you want, which is get my people here early, get them energized, right, and get them ready for the content I'm going to deliver. So, okay, so Don, what do you do when you present? I'd love to hear like one of your top one or two tips or techniques that you make sure to add to your trainings since you train so much online.
One is just bringing my personality. That is, because I feel, competent and confident in the content, then that gives me the ability to be able to adjust. So I'm using a lot of the engagement tools that you talk about, and that you cite in your amazing book,
Oh,
John.
thank you so much, Don.
You
Appreciate
can
that.
you can take a screenshot.
Oh, wait. Yeah, this is actually funny. Wait, I have this here. Oh wait, I have to share sound for you to hear this. So one of the
Oh,
things
okay.
I have a stream deck here, and it allows me to play sounds in here. Okay, well, tell me if you can hear a camera sound. 3, 2, 1. There you go.
All right. But so it's including things like having a poll to know where their expertise is, and to also, when I do that, I'll lay out the choices, and it's all about making it a safe environment, because when you're dealing with technology, there can be well, this is a stupid question, or I should know the answer to this. And so the more I can bring my personality and create a safe space for them, and how I present that. And, I have a lot of initials after my name, but so they'll see that, they know that, but then I'll also share, but it's not about me. It's about you and how I can help you to be more productive, find easier ways to do things. And I really shift that. So I want to be able to have the credibility that, yes, you have the right person. You've made the right choice. Some of my clients might hire me to do 20 or 30 classes in a year. So there's a lot of repeat with that too. But so polls, I'm following the chat extensively. I spoke at for a virtual conference a couple weeks ago, and it was a technical topic. It was Microsoft Excel tips and shortcuts. And these were people that had often been using the tool for a long time. And I was the only one that had audio and was on screen, but I was following the comments. So when there's someone that says, "I've been doing this for 20 years, I had no idea," and I encourage them, if something's awesome, you share that in
right
chat.
Yeah.
And so they were getting a little bit more enthusiastic, and I'm laughing about that. I'm giving them encouraging them, things like that. The organizer had jumped into the session to observe it for a while, and when she did the recap for the day, she said, "I was in Dawn's session. I have never been in a technical session where there was so much laughing going on. And there was also learning going on." And she's like, "Well, yay." So I'm really active with that. And I'm also posing open-ended questions. Now, most of the questions have to do with the skills. But when we come back from break, there might be a question about, what's your favorite morning beverage? Drop that into chat. That is, let's get to know the personal side. Many of these people are on the same team, but they've never met themselves, met each other in person. I use annotation tools in Zoom, breakout rooms, look for reactions. So if they haven't been doing if there hasn't been a lot of activity with that, a lot of questions that, have you worked with this particular feature? Just a yes or no in chat. So I'm just getting them, accustomed to engaging and interacting. So you know all the tricks, John, but
Well, I don't know them all, and that's why we get a chance to interview so many great people. Here, speaking of which, so those who don't know Don's letters, right? MCT, Microsoft Certified Trainer, MOSE, Microsoft Office Specialist Expert, and CVT. Our good friends at eSpeakers have been certifying virtual presenters. Actually, I haven't done that. I've got to put that on my list. I just haven't really gotten around to it. But I did improve my eSpeakers profile to get a score of 45, which is the most that you can get in a basic account.
well, it's a lot better than me.
We
I
can
need to
show you
work
how,
on my
right?
yeah, I might be still, doing Office 2010. I don't know what it says. I have to look at it.
Well, I want to ask, why is safety so important to you in a virtual meeting? And why is safety so important to you? You really put it on the high list. I'm just curious why it became such an important thing for you.
It's for the participants. That is,
Mhm.
I want them to feel that they can ask me any question. I don't want anyone to feel intimidated by it. I don't, when we're done, it's not, there isn't any reason that they should be saying, "Wow, she knows a lot." I want them to feel like, "Hey, I'm doing better than I thought," or I have some things that will save me time. And when they're often will share, you just saved me 3 hours with that tip. Now I have a different workflow, whatever that might be. So it's because I want to hear the questions that they might be afraid to ask.
Yeah.
Because when it is a technical topic, often there's the assumption that everyone else knows this. And so sometimes that's why I might ask a question like just a yes or no if you're familiar with this feature.
Yeah.
And then, if it's being recorded or even if it isn't, I'll make note of it. Well, it only looks like there's maybe a third of you that have worked with this before. We're going to cover it anyways, because you might pick up some additional tips, but it's creating that a real positive learning environment is always my goal.
Yeah, it's like cars and phones. There's so many features with all the software that it's almost impossible now for anyone to know every single feature. And often what I find is most people only use like 3 to 4% of the features available, like the ones that are all default. And every time they discover one of these new ones, I think that's really key. Speaking of discovery, I'd love to hear. So, what is Dawn's view of the future of either virtual or hybrid? What would you like to see happen, or what do you think will happen in the next 10, 20 years on virtual and hybrid?
Well, 20 years from now,
You'll be out of here, right, Don? You'll be like sipping Mai Tais
right.
on the
Talking
veranda.
about my compact loggable back in the days.
When I was computing.
When I was a computer expert.
But I had punch cards.
Oh, no, you better put those up too.
Oh yeah, let's do it. Let's do them
what
all.
the heck are those?
So funny. Yeah. Well, yeah. What do you think besides Mai Tais? What do you think will really happen in the world?
That's a fascinating question. We certainly know that we're going to see more and more AI with that, but then I also think that the flip side of it is a demand or a real need for even more personal touch. That is, I've been in the industry long enough that 20 years ago people said, oh well, now that everything's going online, instructor-led training is just going to go away. We'll never need you. And I'm like, we'll see. And then as new tools come up, and so it's not being afraid of all those new technologies. It's just being aware of what that might be. At this point, as I mentioned, I'm almost 100% virtual. My clients aren't, their workplace isn't really changing, and so many of them are global, so that at least in my space of expertise, it makes sense to continue being virtual. So it's hybrid. I don't personally, my last hybrid, truly where it was a combination between me being in person and some people being virtual, March 13th, 2020. It was as everything was shutting down, and I had set up a Teams meeting for like 3 participants, and as the week was going further and further, then just about everyone went virtual and only a couple people were in the room, as we're trying to sanitize everything. And so since then, the extent of the hybrid that I've seen, I've done in-person conferences and in-person training. The extent that I've been part of is I'm delivering virtual, and there may be people in a conference room or meeting room that are participating. There still may be people that are coming in remotely, but they're there for a sales meeting. They're there for a manager's meeting or something else where there's a reason why they're brought together, but they've asked for this particular training to be part of their agenda. So I haven't been asked, and it's probably less likely because my specialty is not as a keynote speaker, it's as a breakout speaker or as a trainer.
Yeah. Well, excellent, Don. Well, hopefully one day maybe we'll see you. I don't know if you go to Training Magazine or ATD or any of the other fun conferences in the training space.
It's been a long time since I've been to those. I've kind of homed what works for me, and I do have informal friends and contacts that I can reach out for some of those things, but still try to, that's why the group of certified speaking professionals that we're both part of becomes such a great learning resource for us as well. What are you seeing? What do you think is the future of virtual and hybrid? Because I know you're doing a lot more hybrid.
It's amazing that people didn't gravitate to hybrid because, I mean, there's so many obvious benefits. One is just extending your audience. You can include more people. Number two
Right.
is that you can do it with a lot less cost. The amount of cost that it costs to bring the technology in is a fraction of flying 100+ people in, right? Last time we
Oh, yeah.
calculated, that's like $500,000, all right? We were talking about a group that needed to fly 500 people in. Just off the rough math, that could be $500,000, and you can do it tech-wise for probably 5 or 6 grand and do it really, really, really well. And
Hmm.
so I'm just waiting because I thought I was convinced that the money part would win out. You know, when things like offshore and AI have this distinct money advantage, right? You can do a lot with a lot less resources. But there's still the human side of it, which is like some humans don't like hybrid and some humans don't like virtual. So I'll be curious to see what happens around there. I don't know which side's going to win, but right now we're on the throwback side of COVID, which means everyone now will do anything in person just because we haven't done it in so long.
Hmm.
And one day the pendulum will swing somewhere and try and
Hmm.
figure out what the next piece is. But I did see it, it has happened. I do a lot of all hands meetings, Dawn,
Hmm.
where the company will come back and saying, we want to meet in person, and headquarters will come back and tell them no because of the budget. And then they'll actually do a virtual all hands meeting. And they find that they can get a lot of the value for a fraction of the cost. And I think that's the one thing that will keep virtual going for
Hmm.
quite a while. Speaking of keeping going, we're on to this new section of my podcast I've been working on. It's called the speed round. And I know
Okay.
Don may or may not like quick questions, but I'm going to answer you a series of about 8 questions, and I'd like you to just answer them as fast as possible.
Oh,
Would you
great,
be
great for
okay
the
with that, Don?
analytical introverts going, yay.
Well, you can take your time to think
Oh,
about it.
no, that's okay. I'm
All right.
good. All right.
Okay, here you go. What was your best tech investment in your lifetime?
That first computer,
Here you go. That's a good one. Worst tech investment in your lifetime?
the $800 dot matrix printer that came right afterward.
Oh, did it break or did it just loud and noisy?
Be loud and noisy. Yeah.
Yeah. Wait. Here, how about this one?
Wow!
Okay, best legacy software.
Hmm.
So many choices.
There's so many options on that. Yeah. Gosh, I'm kind of stuck in those Microsoft spaces there, but in terms of legacy software,
Could be Windows 1.0.
yeah. Well, I remember when Windows 95 came out and it was like a national media blitz. So that's kind of entertaining just to think about how, that Microsoft had events across the country. It was on the news. And so that's kind of an interesting space for that. Not that I
Yeah.
want to go back to Windows 95, but it was still,
When Windows 95 came out, for those who didn't know, this is when people were so excited about software, they would sleep overnight at the stores to get it. And I
yeah.
was actually on the Microsoft campus, Don, where Jay Leno came out and announced Windows 95. And we had news media on every single corner fighting for a position to get their antenna up so they could broadcast that Windows 95 came out. That was a key
Yeah.
moment at Microsoft.
Yeah. So that's probably the most fascinating legacy software.
Okay, what's a topic you're still curious about?
I, I'm more curious about how can I even be more effective in really helping to help people move forward in their careers, in their development. So that's always an important part. And then, exploring certainly the reality, the integration of how the AI tools that are available, at least in those applications, how they will, change the way that people can approach their work and how I approach then the work that I do.
Okay, there we go. Okay, side question. I had to ask last moment. The most used AI tool you're using right now?
Probably, well, it's a combination of things. ChatGPT is certainly one of those. Not as much with Copilot yet. And the primary reason is a lot of my clients are not willing to invest the extra cost, or they have privacy issues with having the AI built into that. So I think that'll be more so. I'm also extensively have used Grammarly for years. So like I
Oh,
said, that was even before the whole, oh,
good one.
AI is this great. And like, it's been around for a long time, folks. There's a lot of features and programs like PowerPoint that have been utilized, and Excel that have been utilized for a long time with that. And for my videos on YouTube, I use a third-party AI tool, vidIQ, that really helps me to come up with more effective titles
Mm.
and helps me in some of the crafting before I publish those. So those are some of my key ones.
I use well, of course, ChatGPT. Copilot though is I did pay for Copilot because I wanted to see what it could do, and then I use something called Monsters Insights Headline Analyzer to write all my
Oh,
titles for my videos.
yeah.
And then the last one was Opus.pro. Will take any. I just took our good friend Kathy Fyox. I took her
Yeah.
interview and put it through there and allowed me to show me 10 1-minute clips that were most likely to go viral from her last talk in New York.
Oh, great, great. So that's really helpful for different shorts than on YouTube, for instance, right?
Yeah, check that out, Opus.pro. Pretty affordable.
Okay.
Favorite golfing experience in your lifetime?
Yeah, yes, I will be a golf newbie until my last days, I think. So I haven't traveled the world or even uh the country for that. I think that just the favorite ones are when I'm with friends, people I enjoy, because really for me, it's just as much the social and the getting outside. That was one of the reasons why I took it up. I wanted to have some physical activity where I was outdoors and just, really be able to enjoy myself. And so I would think the most fun I've had is when I'm with great friends.
Oh, well, we're trying to decide if we're in the golfing experience. Coming up in Denver, I'm still trying to debate myself. What's your best or favorite Microsoft product in the lifetime of Microsoft products? There's a lot
Oh
to
my
choose.
goodness. Yeah, you might as well just throw out this. I will I'll say my probably the most memorable was years ago when I was watching. It was one of probably the last rollouts and launches for Lotus 123,
Ooh,
which is in the
ooh,
spreadsheet worksheet space.
yeah.
And I'm sitting at the rollout, and they're saying, and then we can do this and we can do that. And I'm sitting there saying, Excel already does that. And it was just sort of like it was the writing on the wall that they just like with WordPerfect, they just didn't jump on the bandwagon quick enough and adapt enough for that. So that's probably the most memorable. And I'm like, but it can already do that. And I didn't realize that I was such a product advocate until I'm like, shh, be quiet. They don't want you to test it.
Well, yeah, my Excel Microsoft friends will appreciate that. All right, the last one should be an easy one. PC of choice. Now that it's not a compact luggable, what is it?
My last couple ones now. See, I don't have all the specs down, but it is a Lenovo and it is a gaming computer. So I always, look for, it's got to be high speed, it's got to be a solid state drive. I've got to be able to process videos without it, And so I don't have all the specs on that because that's not my world. I'm the software pro, not the
Yeah,
hardware pro. Okay, let's be
nice.
clear.
Pick a lane, pick a lane.
Yeah, pick a
Yeah.
lane, pick a lane, and it's always changing. So whatever I got this week would be something different next month. But I'm willing to invest a little bit more for that the higher the higher operating computer?
Yeah, it was all Lenovo laptops for a long time. They were really the Cadillac of laptops, especially when they were IBM. And
Mhm.
but recently I changed over to an Asus G14 only
Mhm.
because it's been called the MacBook of the PC world. It is a 14-inch laptop, but it is like the smallest, fastest, lightest, coming in at like 3 pounds and still outperforming a lot of my other computers. But my desktop now back at home is a Lenovo after last year's Christmas Black Friday series. So Don, let's close this interview up with this one piece. You know, if you could get people to remember, you're a trainer, so if you could actually magically get people to actually remember things, what's the one thing you want people to remember from this interview?
Mm. Best way to be engaging is to bring yourself and to always think about whoever else, who the other people on the other side of the screen. That is to really make it a positive experience for them.
Thank you so much, Don. Thanks for bringing your authenticity here and having a good laugh with me online. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you in Denver, Don.
I look forward to seeing you as well, John. Thank you for the invitation.
Outstanding. All right. Well, this is John Chen. This is the end of another engaging virtual meetings podcast. Make sure and subscribe to all the cool podcast places. This podcast available on over 13 platforms, including Apple and Spotify, our top two platform places. And a new episode releases every single Wednesday. Engagingvirtualmeetings.online. All right. This is John Chen. I hope you really enjoyed this interview with Don. Make sure and click the link. It's inside of there, and you can find where Don hangs out. And if you have a software problem, you can make sure and see here there. So until next time, we'll see you online.
Drawing star people and keep old people. Show you got heart.